So, in the last class, we have learned about adaptive radiation, that how an ancestral species um, radiates from its original position and migrates into different parts of a country or of a continent, and due to the differences between their ecological niche, between their food habits, they gradually form a different species. So, speciation means the formation of a species. Like, what is a species? Species, we have to know the concept of a species. A species is um, a population of individuals who can mate with each other or potentially can mate with each other. Like, all the dogs of the world can potentially mate with each other. All the humans of the world can potentially mate with each other. All the horses of the world can mate with each other. So, a species is a population of individuals who can or who potentially can mate with each other. So, species are basically reproductionally isolated. Like, a dog cannot mate with a cow naturally, or a cow cannot mate with a goat naturally. And most importantly, if we think that we take the gametes from a cow and mate with it with sperms of some dog in laboratory, it will not going to be possible. So naturally also, or naturally also, in laboratory also, we cannot do such things because of this fact of reproductive isolation. Species are reproductively isolated. That means one species cannot mate with other species. That is not allowed in nature. That is not allowed in biology. Okay, that is evolutionarily non-selected. The reproduction between the species. So, species are population of individuals who can or potentially can mate with each other. Okay, so what is reproductive isolation? I have told that one species cannot mate with other species. But why? It is naturally not possible. Even in the laboratory, we cannot do that too. So why? What is the reason behind it? Okay. So there are many reasons. Number one, gametic isolation. See, if I take a dog's sperm and cow's egg and wanted to fuse them to a zygote, it will not going to happen because gametes have specific receptors. They recognize their own species counterpart. So even in laboratory also, these two gametes will never going to fuse with each other. They will not recognize the other. So there is gametic isolation. The gametes of a particular species recognizes that particular species gametes, not others. So if we forcefully try to take one species sperm and another species egg and try to fuse them to form a zygote, that is not going to be possible because the gametes will not recognize each other. That is called gametic isolation. Number two, behavioral isolation. Mating is not possible between two species because there are certain behavioral changes before the mating. So one species cannot mimic the other, or other species immediately recognizes this particular behavioral pattern to be foreign. So behavior wise also this is not possible. Species are behaviorally also isolated. And number 3, if closely related species can mate. Suppose in case of mule is the hybrid of horse and ass. So if closely related species mate with each other, the hybrid that formed due to this union either will be inviable, they will not survive, or they will be sterile. Like mule, the hybrid formed between horse and an ass is a mule. The mule is always sterile. It uh, cannot form its progeny. So hybrid breakdown is a phenomena where when two closely related species mate and form a progeny, number one, that progeny will be inviable, it will not going to survive, it will be dead, or if it is alive, it will be totally a sterile animal. It will not going to reproduce in future. Like, for example, mule that is formed by the union of horse and ass. So these are the reasons of reproductive isolation of a species. So this is the reason why a species cannot mate with other species. But if we want to know that why the species or how different species are formed, the reason behind speciation is basically of two types: allopatric and sympatric. Allo means Allopatric means suppose there is a group of certain individuals. A group of certain individuals used to live at some place of a continent. Now, now, all on a sudden, what happened? Some of them went to another region of that continent, and that region and their old region is divided by a huge mountain range. And somehow, some of the individual of that population was able to cross the mountain and went into a new position and settled there. But others could not cross that mountain. It was a huge mountain. So, with the course of time, what happened? The individuals residing one side of the mountain and individuals residing other side of the mountain became so separate in their ecological niche, in their food habits, in their everything, they eventually become a different species altogether. It may take millions of years. Okay, it is not going to happen overnight, but it will might take millions of years. But after millions of years, this physical barrier of the huge mountain will create two different species in its two sides. Okay, so allopatric speciation means if a physical distance or of geographical distance creates a new species or geographical isolation or physical distance creates a new species that is called allopatric speciation. Okay, so allopatric speciations involve physical distance or geographical isolation. Next is sympatric speciation. Sympatric speciation does not involve any physical distance. Okay, it is different from allopatric. Allopatric, it has to be some physical distance there. It has to be some glacier. There has to be some huge mountain. There has to be some huge river. Okay, there has to be some agent that would separate the two group of individuals permanently from each other. Okay, but in case of sympatric, it is not the case. Here is no effect of any kind of physical distance or geographical distance. It can happen within a single environment. Within a single environment. For example, apple maggot fly. In America, apple tree was introduced later. Okay, so you did not have their own apple trees before. Just like in India, potato was introduced by the Portuguese. So in US, America, they did not have any apple tree there. So there are some maggot flies. They used to live on a certain tree. Okay, the name of the tree was thorn. Thorn, Thawhorn, thorn. They used to live there and eat its fruits and survive and mate and all. Okay, now apple tree is introduced. Maybe in 15th century or 16th century, apple tree was introduced into the United States. I'm not very sure about the date, but apple tree was introduced later into America. So some of the maggot fly flown from their original host of thorn tree into the apple tree just for adventure. See, what is this? Let's see, just kind of that. And some of them found the apple tree to be suitable to live. Okay, so some of them started living on the apple tree, and some of them was previously, just like previously they used to live on the hawthorn tree, they used to live there, and some of them find the new host tree, that is the apple tree. Okay, and they started their family there. They used to eat there, and their progeny baby maggot flies were used to the apple, and they used to form their own progeny and carry on with time. And this led to two different species of fly. One that is on the thorn tree. They used to live there. They used to mate with the flies that live on the thorn tree only. Their babies eat only thorn fruit, while the apple maggot flies used to live on the apple tree only, mate with the counterparts, those live on the apple tree only, and their children will eat the apples only. So eventually, they became two different species. Although there is no geographical isolation between them, maybe the thorn tree and the apple tree side by side in a garden, but their mating partner, their food is totally different. And eventually, through the course of time, they became a totally different species altogether. So it was originally used to live on the thorn tree, and after the introduction of the apple tree, they started living there. They formed a totally new species. So here is no geographical isolation, no physical distance, but there is the formation of a new species. This specific type of speciation is called sympatric speciation.